Welcome to Green TV, the show dedicated to positive New Deal solutions and the candidates that advocate for them. I'm Angela Trusty, your host for today. Today we have, via a Skype call, Diane Nealon, author and creator and editor of the new book, The Charlie Book, 60 Ways to Help Homeless Kids. We'll talk with Diane and hopefully find out how we can help homeless children in just a few minutes. Green TV is about Green New Deal eco-jobs for the economy, new jobs, positive solutions, eco-capitalism. Prices must tell the environmental truth. Green TV is about the green industrial revolution, solar, wind, geothermal, rail jobs, weatherization, conservation, and efficiency jobs. Green TV is about building green neighborhoods, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, and rail-friendly communities, having cleaner air, cleaner water, cutting taxpayer subsidies to zero for fossil fuel, big oil, and big auto. Green TV is about renewable energy, free energy, clean energy. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America. Rail can move people, the economy, and the nation forward. And now, these short messages.
I'm Audrey Clement, the independent candidate for Arlington County Board. As a 13-year Westover resident and civic activist with a PhD in political science and service as a congressional fellow, I'm running for County Board because Arlington faces several crises that County Board has failed to address. Among them, overcrowded schools, loss of green space, and an office vacancy rate double the historic average. If elected, I pledge to emphasize basic services like streets, schools, libraries, and public safety, seek tax relief for residences and businesses, and stop the exodus of federal agencies from Arlington. Promote consolidation of housing programs to improve efficiency. Promote installation of efficient renewable energy in all public schools, and provide a voice on County Board for all taxpayers. If you share my agenda, then spread the word about my candidacy. Donate to my campaign. Together we can make the Arlington way more than an empty phrase. I'm Audrey Clement, and I authorized and paid for this.
In 2005, Gail for Rail Parker's More Trains, Less Traffic campaign made Gail the first candidate in Virginia to run on the platform for rail. Gail is the first candidate in the nation to run for public office on a campaign advocating for rail as a national security concern that makes the U.S. independent of fossil fuels and makes our air and water healthier. As an on-ballot candidate, Gail advocated for rail in 11 consecutive campaigns, including 2 state-level campaigns for U.S. Senate, and encouraged other candidates to include rail in their platforms. In addition, Gail serves the environment through renewable energy advocacy, and as she picks up steam, the rail platform now champions the handicapped and the elderly. A proud Air Force veteran, civil servant, mother, and grandmother, Gail is on a mission to show that rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America.
33,000 Americans are killed on our roadways every year. 430,000 Americans are injured or maimed on our roadways every year. Every year. Rail is safer. Rail saves lives. Rail cuts dependency on fossil fuels. We can build high-speed rail nationwide for half the total cost of rebuilding roadways and bridges. Rail is fiscally conservative and socially responsible.
If you share Gail's belief that every American deserves a say in the decisions that affect their lives, spread the word about this positive solution to today's issues and climb aboard our campaign for rail and renewable energy.
These petition signatures were collected from thousands of Americans for more trains and less traffic. I'm Gail for Rail Parker, and I approved this message.
You are watching Green TV, the show dedicated to positive, green, New Deal solutions and those that advocate for them. And now we'd like for you to meet Diane Nealon. Diane, I realize even as I just said that, I pronounced your name wrong, which we talked about before the show, but welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Well, if that's all that we get on this, we'll be doing good, and it's on both sides, I'm sure, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, tell us about yourself. You know, we've got your book that we're going to be able to talk about. We know that you there was an author and you did the photography and the editing for this book. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about your journey. But why don't you just first kick off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, after a career as a teacher, I ended up through a convoluted way in running homeless shelters in Illinois, and in the process got involved in making sure homeless kids could get into school, which at one point they really were having trouble with. So I was part of the small group of do-gooders that got a law passed in Illinois, and then on the federal level to make sure homeless kids could get into school. I realized through many contacts with the school people and families that that wasn't happening. So after I ran a shelter for many years, I ended up, again, it's kind of convoluted, but in 2005, I sold my little townhouse. I bought a little motorhome that I swore I'd never buy, but got a video camera, started my nonprofit Hear Us, and set out to do a documentary on homeless kids talking about what it was like to be homeless. And that was, 12 plus years ago, and I'm still traveling on the road. I don't have a home other than my little van that I got, and I'm out making documentaries of kids experiencing homelessness to use mainly as awareness raising and just to really sensitize people to homelessness.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'd love for you to talk about your mindset 12 years ago. You know, it's one thing to, and many of us experience this, where we see something and we notice that there's something wrong with it, and we want to do something. But it takes a big leap to say, you know what, I'm selling my home, I'm getting in an RV, I'm going to make this part of my life mission. Could you walk us through your mindset at the time that, you know, encouraged you to make that leap?
Well, I think I could be certifiably insane at the point, but I had been working in a project, leading a project in the Chicagoland area, and working with the schools, and we had just, my project just got a grant to do a film about kids talking about what it was like to be homeless, and that project got canceled. And I was so dismayed by it that I really wanted to make that film, because that's, you know, I knew it would be better than trying to march homeless kids in front of a group of school superintendents and having them talk about what it's like to be homeless. So I thought, well, the film would really do it. And since they discontinued my project, I was kind of in that, well, now what am I going to do when I grow up kind of state of mind. And so I just kind of concocted this Hear Us project, figuring I could sell my home and buy a motor home and live in it and travel around the country to places that were not typically thought of as having homelessness, and really defy the stereotypes. You know, it's not just Chicago, it's not New York, it's these little resort communities in rural areas. So I pretty well just did it. And it's like I've done everything else in my life that I've been glad I did. And it was just one of those, I got to do this and I'll figure it out as I go. And I mean, I had never driven an RV before, so that was weird. It was all weird, but it worked out, and I'm still doing it. So I guess that says something.
Yeah, that does say something. You know, I'd love for you to talk about, because I've seen this in preparation for this interview, where you'll hear people say, well, homelessness doesn't exist in my community. And that's something that you just spoke to. You know, it's not just these large urban areas where there's homelessness. What did you discover, like on your initial journey as you were driving around in this RV? You know, what did you discover about homelessness that maybe you wouldn't have guessed before?
Well, Angela, that's a good question, because when I started driving, I mean, I at that point had worked in this for over 20 years. So it's, you know, I've added another, 13 years now. So I really thought I knew a lot and saw a lot and was unflappable in my, you know, dealing with this issue. And I was absolutely blown away by the extent of homelessness, the invisibility of family homelessness, the confusion people had about it. And I just have to say, it was, you know, my first year driving, I did about a 20,000 mile trip, and, you know, I kept shaking my head and dropping my jaw as I, you know, left an interview. And it's one of those things where I thought I was not able to be stunned, but I was wrong.
I wonder if you could share any stories with us of anyone you met along the way. Was there anyone that come to mind?
Yeah, I could share lots of stories, but the one that really sticks in my mind, even after all these years, was in Reno, Nevada. I was introduced to 3 sisters, and one was about 7 years old, one just was turning 10, and one was 13. Mm-hmm. And they were living with their mom, and the mom had just had a baby, so they were staying in this church shelter. And I had met the girls at school. The homeless liaison connected me, and I did an interview. So the girls knew me, at least were comfortable around me, and they invited me to the shelter at night. So I went and was able to do that and kind of hung out with the girls. And, the mom was busy with the baby, so the girls were more than happy to take me around and show me. And, mm-hmm. They said, oh, these are the roller beds we sleep on, the scratchy blankets, the windows that the cold air comes in. And, so they kind of, we just chatted, and I did more of the interview there. And the one thing that each of the girls said in their own way on the interviews was that they never, ever wanted to be homeless again. After this, it was like, I've had enough. And and that's understandable, and it's pretty common. And so, I left Reno and went going on my way, and I got called by the school person that had connected me with the girls, and she said, Diane, I have some really bad news for you. And I'm going, all right. And she said, shortly after I was there, not because I was there, but it was shortly after the girls and their mom and the baby all were kicked out of the shelter. And, evidently there was a conflict between them and another family, and I have no idea who was right and wrong or whatever. And but all I know is these girls got kind of bounced around in the child welfare system, and the family got put on a bus and sent to somebody, like 14 hours away. And, I just know enough about families in these situations to know it wasn't like they were going to a great situation and everything was going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And I just remembered how sad, that they were going to be. And it stayed with me. And there's literally millions of kids in similar situations in our country today. And it just, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, when you hear stories like this, it really does make you think, how can children be so resilient? And I'm sure you've experienced them being very resilient, to be able to endure experiences like the one that you just described.
No, the kids are amazing, and certainly not every kid is resilient, which is the problem. Mm-hmm. And the kids can end up in dire circumstances, and their adulthood can be really traumatized. But the kids that I've known over the years that are resilient and somehow manage to land on their feet, it is just inspiring, because a lot of times I'd be driving along in this crazy first journey of mine, and I'd be going, what the heck am I doing here, out in the middle of nowhere, like practically lost. And then I just would think of these kids, and I'm like, I got to do it for them. And it's the name of the film, and people can watch it. It's just a 20-minute film, and it's by far my most favorite film, and I love all my films, so that says a lot. But It's called My Own Four Walls, and it's on my website, which I'm sure you'll share with your viewers. But it's 20 minutes that will be well spent to just hear from the kids. And if you're not moved by them, then you better go check your pulse.
Okay, wonderful. Could you say the name of the title of that movie again, so that people have an opportunity?
My Own Four Walls.
My Own Four Walls, and that can be found on your website, which we'll be sure to make sure we share later. I'd love to talk a little bit about, because our viewers might not be aware of the difficulty for children who are homeless to have access to education. I wonder if you could give a background on that and talk about why that became a focus of yours.
Well, actually, there's a federal law, and it's called, and it was originally called McKinney Act, but it's McKinney-Vento now. And it was passed in 1987, and it was supposed to open the school doors for kids in homeless situations. But in 1993, we had a family staying in the shelter I was running in Aurora, Illinois, and the mom wasn't able to get her 3 kids back in the school that they had been going to, which had sort of been referred to in the law, but it wasn't at the time. It wasn't a good law. And push came to shove. We really advocated with the mom to get her kids into school. The school district actually sued the mom to keep her kids out of school. And we got a lawyer to countersue, and it was one of those court battles that ended up okay because the kids were able to get moved back into that district and into the school, and it left the rest of us saying kind of, this is wrong. And so we looked at the federal law. We thought it covered it. We found out it didn't. And the school superintendent basically said, you need to get a law that tells the school districts what they need to do clearly. And we're like, all righty. So we in Illinois, the cutting edge state that we are, got a law passed in 1994, the Illinois Education for Homeless Children Act, which we called Charlie's Bill. And it passed, and it really was one of those things, like, we were just totally delighted that it passed, but realized later that not too many people knew about it, and some people weren't complying with it. So that just led to a lot of other things. But it also gave us a chance to get it passed on the federal level for the McKinney-Vento Act as it was being reauthorized. And so in 2001, thanks to my congresswoman who championed this cause, Judy Biggert, who's now retired, and she's a Republican. She was one of the state legislators that helped pass the law back in Illinois, and she was able to, on the federal level, get it incorporated into federal law. And so that has been the law since 2001, 2002. And but again, schools don't understand, they don't recognize, they want to deny, in some cases, the existence of homelessness. And case in point, I just came back from New Jersey. I spent a month there traveling and interviewing and filming, and they have only counted in their schools about, I'm going to say 10,000, I might be off by 1,000 or so, but kids that they've identified as homeless students. And in fact, they probably have, just even very conservatively and statistically, they probably have over 50,000 students that are experiencing homelessness in New Jersey. So you have about 40,000 kids who are out there who may be in school. Some of them aren't in school. Some of them may not have been able to have the continuity of their education in the school that they had attended before they became homeless. A lot of them are sitting in classrooms in fear with, like, if they find out that I'm homeless, I'm going to get kicked out. So it's really, and New Jersey is not that unusual in that. And so it's really a big problem still, 15, 17 years after the original, law got reauthorized. So, these films that I make, which again are available on my website, they're 20 minutes or so, but it gives the kids and the parents a chance to talk about what it's like to be homeless and what school means. And they're used a lot for professional development, but they're certainly suitable for general watching and all kinds of audiences. And it's, it just amazes me. I'm continue to be stunned at the number of people who that haven't seen that there's homelessness of families and youth. They see the grizzled guy on the street corner, and they kind of somehow, some people process that and shut it off and, get annoyed by it, but they don't see the families. And because of that, then they just don't understand that we have, I'm sure, over 3 million kids in this country that are homeless, with and without parents.
Yeah, those numbers that you've shared, they're really staggering. I think this transitions somewhat nicely into the book, Charlie's book. I was going to ask you where that name came from. I'm assuming it's from the nickname of this bill. But I
Yes,
can
it
imagine that there are perhaps teachers watching this show who are thinking, I might have students in my class who are homeless. How do I support them? Or people in general thinking, how do I help homeless kids? So the book, Charlie's book, 60 Ways to Help Homeless Kids. Talk about the putting together of this book. I'd love to understand how it was put together. What are some of the best tips? Where can people get a copy? Share with us.
Oh, sure. It was actually the brainstorm of a colleague of mine, the woman that actually wrote the book, Diana Bauman, who's worked on this issue for, probably close to 20 years, if not more. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to do something in conjunction with Hear Us, my organization, to help homeless kids. And so she came up with this. She started out with 50 ways, but then it grew to 60 ways, and I think she stopped at that point because she wanted to get the book written. So she wrote the book. She worked with the school people in North Carolina, the school homeless liaisons across the state, and kind of massaged it through their filters. And they all came up with these ideas of little things and big things that can be done in local communities to make a difference for the kids in those local communities that are experiencing homelessness. And they really have come up with some very simple things for teachers to do, or simple things for scout troops to do, or service clubs, or any kind of individuals or groups that want to do something. And it really gives a simple how-to. You don't need to have a PhD in homelessness services to do it, and it's just a neat little book, and it gives a little background. It doesn't overwhelm you. It's just 24 pages, so it's not anything that you'll get a hernia carrying. And it's something that will give give your local community an opportunity to do something to make lives better. And and a lot of times, and over the years, I've kept in contact with some of the families, and they always talk about some little thing that I thought was little that made such a huge difference for them. So it's, I think we have to remember that we don't need to, have a big act of Congress to make things better, although we're working on some of those angles too. But, this is something that can be done locally in a simple way, and it makes difference. Like diapers. Mm-hmm. Diapers for babies. I mean, like, how many people would think it's a good idea to ignore a dirty diaper? And yet there's so many parents in poverty, but also, certainly in homeless situations that can't afford to get diapers, and they have nowhere to go to get them. And, there are some networks set up to provide those, but not in every community. And it's, so assume that there's not enough diapers in your community, and, you can gather them. And so the book kind of guides you in what you should do once you get that great idea to do something. And, socks would be another thing, it's like, and underwear. I mean, kids going to school without adequate socks and underwear, that can be an issue. So that's something that can be solved.
Okay, wonderful. I want to remind viewers, this is Green TV. We're here with Diane Nillen. We are coming to the close of our program today, but Diane, what's the good news? We've talked about some of the things you've seen out on the road. You've talked about some of the great work you're doing. Tell us, what progress have you seen in this battle against kids and family homelessness?
Well, I certainly have seen as awareness grows, then people's actions and compassion grows. And I've seen in school districts where before maybe they weren't so responsive, now they are. And they're seeing that kids that are in these homeless situations pretty much all want to learn, and school is important to them. And it's just amazing that the families and the youth will keep pursuing education. And it's inspiring to see what it means to get an education and why they want to. And, you know, I've seen kids over the years that ended up, you know, becoming doctors. I had a woman come up to me at an education meeting the other day in New Jersey, and she's like, well, I was homeless as a kid, you know, and now she's a school administrator. And, you know, it's like we need to give people the chance to succeed. And education certainly is a big tool in that. So if we can help these kids get into school and get what they need and have them feel good about school, then I think we have a chance to, you know, to help them succeed as adults.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Could you one more time just say your website where our viewers can go to learn more if they feel compelled to do so?
Sure. It's HearUs, HearUs.us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Diane. We've loved having you on the show. We feel like this has been very informative for our viewers. One of the things we talk about here on Green TV is the idea that an individual can make change and that we can start in our local communities. So thank you very much for joining us and for echoing that.
Well, Angela, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I will be happy to do what I can to connect with you at some point down the road.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Again, this is Diane Millen, who joined us. She is one of the creators of the book, Charlie's Books, 60 Ways to Help Homeless Kids. You can find out more about her efforts to help the homeless at www.hearus.us. Again, my name is Angela Trusty, your host for today. That's it for Green TV. We'll see you next time.